Yeah, because the variety of services and programs of government can offer just vary so much between departments, like you said, but also from county to county. So not everybody's offering the same things. And so I think you really just kind of have to take it step by step and tackle one thing at a time and say, okay, what's our most popular program offering, or what's the most popular service, and kind of go through that and say, where might an individual who's blind run into barriers here? Where might an individual with an intellectual disability run into barriers here? And really kind of thinking through what some of those solutions may be.
Well, hello and welcome to the ADA Shop Talk podcast. I'm your host, Paul Klein, and if you are an ADA coordinator, government official, architect, or accessibility specialist trying to better understand the ADA, then you are in the right place, my friend. The ADA Shop Talk podcast is brought to you by BlueDag. Check out BlueDag's Transition Plan Builder and Inspection Suite over at bluedag.com. Let me know if you want a demo or anything like that. I'm happy to connect you with the team. Got some great stuff over there for you folks if you're interested. Well, today I've got a guest that I had the honor of meeting last year at the, I think it was the annual conference that the ADA Pacific Center had, and I ran in to the director, Jerri Davison, and I just loved her spirit and her enthusiasm and her drive. I think she was just becoming the director at the time, and so we stayed in contact. And she is the director of the Pacific ADA Center and also works with the Center on Disability. Jerri Davison, I'm so glad you're here. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm excited to talk with you about some of the stuff that we're both passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the goal of this podcast. It's like kind of like sitting down having coffee at Starbucks and talking ADA. And so you are like we were talking before I hit the record button. There's a lot of us code nerds, like myself, that are facility, pavement and asphalt guys and ramps and grab bars. And you got a great background and experience, kind of like I just found out our friend Chris Sparrow, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago or a few episodes ago. I didn't realize you guys knew each other, and he like you have. I actually think you guys worked together. Is that true at some point?
Yes, absolutely. So, my previous job before I came over to the Center on Disability and Pacific ADA Center was with a Center for Independent Living here in South Carolina, and it's called Able South Carolina. And it's run by and for people with disabilities, and Chris and I both work together there. Making systems change, helping people understand what their rights were, and just really advocating for people with disabilities to have greater access and inclusion.
Yeah, that's so great. And that's that soft side, or that side, I forget what you called it a minute ago before we hit record.
The murkier
The
side
murkier
of the
side. I love
ADA.
that. Yeah, because I'm a grab bar parking lot, and I think a lot of people listen, and even ADA coordinators, we fall into that trap of just thinking it's, parking stalls and grab bars and toilets, and there's so much more to the ADA and that inclusivity and just the PSA and all that, which we'll talk about. But that's what I think having you and Chris on the show is going to be very enlightening for those listening, because you can bring that perspective, there's much needed perspective, because that's kind of that area that we don't want to forget about, and it's so important. But so you worked with Chris in what is it about South Carolina? It's like, South Carolina is like, becoming a forefront in the ADA world. It's like, there's some good things happening there. I mean, and you're running the Pacific ADA from South. I guess that's the beauty of virtual work these days, is it?
Absolutely, yes. So I think the reason South Carolina is coming at the forefront, and you're hearing a lot more, is because of the Center for Independent Living, where Chris and I both worked. There's a very strong staff and a passionate leader there, Kimberly Tiso, and she's just brought a lot of passion and advocacy and partners to get some laws changed in South Carolina. And I think, folks that have worked there are going out and going out into the world. And even if they've moved on from their jobs there, they're still in the disability field making changes wherever they go.
Yeah, no, that's so important. And that's what's neat about what I think I see happening there is, and Chris and I talked a little bit about this on his episode, is that, you do need that. He talked about the carrot and the hammer, I think it was. And states like California, Florida, New York have the hammer. You can sue for compensatory damages if you as the individual, whereas the ADA just allows for attorneys, but there's actually state compensatory components in those states. South Carolina doesn't have that per se, from my understanding, but yet we're still seeing, as a whole, I mean, there's a long ways to go, but I mean, holistically, they're headed in the right direction and they're, doing the right thing. A couple of our clients with Blue Dag are down there. Keith with the city of Greer, very proactive and involving the community to make their community more accessible. And what I like about that is it's not under the duress of it's not being forced through lawsuit. It's through a collaborative effort, I guess is a long-winded way of what I'm trying to say. And I love that.
Yes. Yeah, the city of Greer is a great model. And I think that when your state has a different political makeup as some of these other states, you have to find other ways to really get through to folks the importance of the ADA, and that it's a bipartisan issue, and so it's really about finding champions, and I think that really goes for everywhere, because we all know that the ADA enforcement is limited because of the limited staff available to do that. So, your best bet is helping people see the business side of the ADA, or the human rights side of the ADA, and really getting folks on board. And so that's something really cool that I've been able to take with me from my previous job, and really hammer in with the staff we have at the Pacific ADA Center, who are all, passionate advocates for that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And has that been a little bit of a shift coming from the South Carolina region to the Pacific, where there is a little more, that's where I'm from, California. So I understand the dynamics of, the hammer, there's definitely certainly an element and some folks that live by the hammer and not so much of a collaborative report, but I also know there's business owners that choose to ignore it. So the hammer sometimes is needed. So, was that shift for you? Did you notice that working?
Yeah, I definitely think, especially in the government realm of things, it's a lot easier to find champions of the ADA in California. I think the knowledge base around the ADA, and like you said, some of the laws that are out there, South California has additional laws to promote a lot of the standards for accessibility that coincide with the ADA, and maybe are even a little bit stricter than the ADA. And so I think it's pretty easy within the government realm, within the ADA coordinator realm, to find champions. And so that's been a big boost to what we've been able to do in California, because we have this amazing ADA coordinator network there, and they're really passionate about making governments an accessible and inclusive place for people with disabilities.
Right. No, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit more about the Pacific ADA Center. I know it covers more than just California, and I know a lot of people listen to the show and they get tired of, I know they're thinking, quit talking about California, but it is in my DNA, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, and Blue Dag, because Blue Dag's in California, but we serve all of, the United States. But talk about the Pacific ADA Center, and it covers more of a region, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So the Pacific ADA Center covers Region 9 of the federal government. And so that is California, Arizona, Nevada, Hawaii, and Guam, and some of those Pacific islands. And so a very different geographic region, a very different minority makeup in those regions. Also, just some different political climate. So it's really interesting, the variety of activities and folks that we assist in each of those different states. The Pacific ADA Center is also a part of the ADA National Network. So each state, no matter where you are, has an ADA regional center that can do some of those same services that the Pacific ADA Center offers. So if you visit the ADA National Network's website, you can find out who your region is and contact them. And so some of the things that we do is we have a helpline that you can call, whether you're a person with a disability, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an ADA coordinator, and you can learn more about what the ADA says about your particular situation and get that free help and consultation to help you navigate those waters. We also do a lot of trainings. We do a lot of our work virtually, which is why I'm able to work in South Carolina, because we cover such a large region and we have a small staff. So we do a lot of our trainings and our meetings virtually. We also have partnerships and collaborations with people in all of our different states who help us do a lot of the groundwork. So we train some of our Center for Independent Living partners, some of our protection and advocacy system partners to go out and work with people one-on-one. And there are boots on the ground a lot of times to get the word out.
Yeah, that's great. And how many regions are there like the Pacific ADA Center? Is there, kind of?
Yes. So there are 10 regions divided by the federal government. And then we have a knowledge translation center that kind of helps with the broader national picture as well.
Okay. So I imagine the South Carolina has a region, and then there's probably one up north, I think up in Minnesota. I think there's one.
Yeah. So there's the Southeast ADA Center. There's the oh gosh, I'm gonna forget all of these because there's 10 of them, but there's the Northeast ADA Center, the Southwest ADA Center. There's also like the Mid-Atlantic. There's one for you out there.
Yeah. And are these centers also, will they help like local governments with some of their transition plan and self-evaluation? Are they involved with that much, or is it mostly private?
Yeah, I think that some of them absolutely do that work. Each of the regions, is staffed differently, and some of them have their, I guess, priority areas where they have more expertise. So, but if they don't do what you're looking for and they can't help you with those transition plans, then typically they have a resource that they can refer you to.
I see. And how about you guys in Pacific ADA? Do you find yourself working with some local governments or helping them out when they get in a pickle or anything?
Yes, absolutely. We have a great relationship with a lot of the local governments, and they can call us and ask questions about their transition plans and get advice, and we can offer some training on that. And we typically do offer maybe a session at our yearly conference. We have one virtual conference and one in-person conference a year, and so we have a whole track devoted to ADA coordinators. And so that's a great place to connect and get some answers to your questions as well.
Yeah, no, it's such a great resource. And I know, we've had the ADA for 30 something years. And when it's frustrating when a business owner says, well, I had no idea. It's like, there's so many resources out there. You can pay for resources. You can find it. It's out there if you really want to. And then I just got sued out of the middle of nowhere. No, there's probably just a little bit of effort to go a long ways. And I think that's great because, you hear the argument, oh, well, I can't afford some high paid consultant like you, Paul, or Blue Dag or whatever. Well, you don't need that. There's these great regional resources that are out there, that are just great.
Yes, absolutely. We're a free hotline that folks can call for some basic answers. The Center on Disability, which is the broader umbrella, Pacific ADA Center is just one of our programs, but we also have a new program called Beyond Access Consulting, and we're going to be doing a lot of outreach to local businesses in our area to let them know about the ADA and that we can offer some help, and it doesn't have to be super expensive, and it can be a very affordable thing, but our main mission is to make the community more accessible.
Yeah, I think that's the heart of all of us, and what we're after is, providing the greatest degree of access to the greatest number of people. And
Absolutely.
then by virtue of that, the lawsuits drop, which makes it more profitable for businesses. So it's good for
Yes.
businesses. So it's that win-win, and
Yes. They
listen,
get more customers too, right?
yeah, there's that whole, discretionary income for people with disability is twice the teenage market, 2018 study, I think it was, and that number just baffles me. If you think about that, we want people with disabilities in our businesses buying things. They have more money than the
Yes.
teenagers, and the teenagers have a lot of money, or at least their
Yes,
parents do.
absolutely. It's an overlooked market for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So explain that real quick, just so I've always wondered all the dynamics with the Center on Disability, the Pacific ADA. So the Center on Disability is kind of the umbrella company. Then underneath that, on one side, you have Pacific ADA. And then what else is under that umbrella of the
Yeah,
center?
yeah. So the Center on Disability is a program. We fall under the Public Health Institute, which is a large organization that is based in California and Washington, D.C. There are two home offices, but has employees across the world. And so what the Public Health Institute does is allow people who run smaller programs to bring their programs to them, and then they provide some structure and support that would be a lot more expensive for us smaller programs to be able to provide for ourselves. So the Center on Disability is a program of the Public Health Institute, and the Center on Disability has several programs within its realm, and one of those is the Pacific ADA Center, which is a federally funded grant, and then another one is Beyond Access Consulting, as I mentioned earlier, and so the Center on Disability is really that broader approach to disability access and equity and inclusion. So we're looking at systems change, we're looking at advocacy, things that we can't do with our federal funds within the Pacific ADA Center. The Pacific ADA Center is limited to outreach and education and training on specifically the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we've got a bunch of advocates on our staff. We wanted to be able to go and do more. So the Center on Disability allows us to do that with other funding.
Yeah, and then I know you're branching off into doing more through survey work for local businesses in the Bay Area, I believe it is.
Yes, yes. And so that Beyond Access Consulting program, which is also under that Center on Disability umbrella, is going to allow us to work more with the business side of things. So we're going to be reaching out to local businesses and offering our facility assessment services, going out to their sites and giving them some advice about how they can do barrier removal. We also offer trainings, paid trainings for staff and for human resource managers. So it's bigger than just that physical accessibility. We really want folks to understand, hiring people with disabilities and employment rights, but also, how to serve their customers with disabilities and what that entails. So some disability etiquette, those kind of things. So the trainings are a very broad range, but that physical accessibility is a newer program. Although we've had a staff person who's been answering questions about this for 18 years, and he is a certified access specialist in California. So he's had the qualifications for a long time. It just hasn't been a service that we've offered.
Yeah, formalized, and that's starting to come into play. So if you're in that region and you're looking for resources or help with surveys, and you're in the north, is it the North Bay or East Bay? Where?
Anywhere close to that Bay Area where
San Francisco Bay Area,
to,
California.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear, in case someone in South Carolina is out there. So,
yes.
Yeah. Listening.
Yeah. The San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah. So great. Let's talk about that murky side of the ADA. So if there's an ADA coordinator out there listening right now, and they feel pretty good about their facilities, or they've got they're doing their self-evaluation of all their facilities, parks and trails, and they feel pretty good there. But this kind of, accommodations and modifications and just that murky side, do you have any examples, or what kind of knowledge could you share with the listeners in that aspect?
Yeah, I think that it's easy when you think about the concrete side of facility access, although I'm very envious of folks that can, know all of that off the top of their heads. But I think that, we often overlook making sure people can really get the full benefit of the services and programs that governments have to offer. And that can look a lot of different ways, because people with disabilities look a whole lot of different ways. And so you're thinking about, some of the easy ones, like allowing service animals where typically animals wouldn't be permitted, or allowing personal care attendants to attend events with someone who needs that sort of assistance without charging extra for that person, providing interpreters for someone who needs ASL, American Sign Language, having an accessible website. Those are all some of the bigger things that we hear about more often. But I think we also need to dive a little deeper. Are the materials you're handing out at your program, are they provided in alternative formats that people may need, like electronic or audio or braille if requested? Are you putting your information in plain language so that people with cognitive disabilities can better understand those? Could you add some graphics or pictures to make sure that information is being fully conveyed? And if you add those graphic and pictures, are you, if it's an electronic form, are you providing that alt text to make sure people who are blind who use screen readers can also? So it's really trying to think through the variety of people who are going to be accessing those services and what barriers they may encounter, and trying to think outside the box about how to solve those. And that's something that we provide a lot of technical support on.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. And I kind of, that whole realm kind of just seems like it's kind of like readily achievable barrier removal for businesses. It's like, it's easy to say it's common sense, and it's like doing the right thing. So it seems very simple on the outside, but I know when you try to tackle that as an ADA coordinator or working for an entity or an agency, it can be a little overwhelming. Because you have all these different, departments, different programs, rec department, human resources, and all those. So where would you recommend someone start when they embark on that type of a review or process?
Yeah, because the variety of services and programs of government can offer just vary so much between departments, like you said, but also from county to county. So not everybody's offering the same things. And so I think you really just kind of have to take it step by step and tackle, one thing at a time, and say, okay, what's our most popular program offering, or what's the most popular service, and kind of go through that and say, where might an individual who's blind run into barriers here? Where might an individual with an intellectual disability run into barriers here? And really kind of thinking through what some of those solutions may be. And sometimes it's, it can be really simple, for someone who has diabetes, maybe it's allowing someone to bring snacks in when otherwise food or drink wouldn't be in. It can be something as simple and low cost as that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it seems like there's, a lot of like, I hate to use the word common sense, but it's like what provides the greatest degree of access to the greatest number of people. So if you're a city or a county and nobody's using the rec department in the community, especially the people with disabilities, they're using, I don't know, the library or some other program or service, because that's just the way your community is built. It makes more sense to go focus on those areas where the higher use is, and I remember when 2010, when the ADA came in, it was the first time they had nationwide, they had the lifts for pools. So we had all these poor hotel owners running around spending $10,000 on pool lifts, but they hadn't even looked at their readily achievable barrier removal in 30 years. They didn't have an accessible room, accessible counter, parking stall, or even an accessible path of travel to get into the building. But they had a brand new, shiny $10,000 pool lift. And people don't come to a hotel to get in the pool. They come to get a room. If you don't have an accessible room, you would have been better off putting that $10,000 in making your room accessible, or at least park so you can get into the building.
Yeah, so people are going to check the website first to see if you're offering an accessible room before they before they would come to visit your pool. The one counter argument to that, because you brought up that maybe nobody's using the rec center, or no people with disabilities maybe, and that may be for a different reason. It may not be because there's a lack of interest there. It may be because you don't have information on your website about the accessibility features you've got there. It may be because you don't have pictures of people with disabilities, on your site for your rec center. And so there also is, there's something to be said for making people feel welcome to use that service too. And I think that's something that is a little bit different than like an ADA program modification or accommodation, but it really is about letting people know, hey, we are making some efforts to include people with disabilities here. You are welcome here, and we will work with you. So and there's always going to be things that we forget. I don't want everybody to panic and say, oh my gosh, there's so many ways that our programs aren't fully inclusive or accessible. There's always going to be something that someone new teaches you, because people with disabilities, even if they have the same disability, still may have different needs. And so it's okay. They can, communicate what that need is, and then you can help work with them to rectify that situation. So it's going to be a continual iteration of improvement. And I think that's what's so cool about the work we do, is that there's always room to be more inclusive. We're always learning more about
Right.
What that means.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. And I think it goes back to that whole idea of, for cities and counties and agencies, Title II entities, that it's a living transition plan. It's a living, it's like, I liken it to, it's painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Once you get done, you got to go, by the time you get the whole thing done, you got to go back and start over. It's a never ending evolving process. It's just something you do as part of your business, as opposed to something that you do and then you put the binder on the table and call it done. It's never done. The
work is never done.
No,
right? Yes,
because things are changing. I mean, we didn't have websites, how long ago, but we had the ADA, and then now we've got Uber and all these other challenges. What was the other one that, anyway, with technology, Lyft, someone was, those little cars you can rent with apps. I mean, they don't have any, the regulations haven't caught up to technology. So it's always going to be that living process. And I think Chris and I talked about this. I'm sure you would agree that when you're doing this process, whether it's on the murky side of the ADA or the physical side, involving your local advocacy groups and community members, because they can help drive. Okay, you got this huge, you've got 45 departments and all this stuff to look at. Help us decide where to start. Where's the best one? Well, most of our people in our community, in blind or mobility impaired, do use the rec department. And so getting that updated first, as opposed to the rec yard at Public Works. Who cares? Nobody goes there,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. A big saying within the disability community is nothing about us without us. And if you're doing it without the input of the disability community, you're probably not doing it in the most efficient way. You're probably looking at some things or overlooking some things, and you may be spending money in areas where it could be better spent elsewhere. And I think that's the important thing is, if you're reaching out to your local Centers for Independent Living, your local disability advocacy groups, the Pacific ADA Center is the majority of our staff have people with disabilities. I am one of them. I think that shows that you understand that it's really important to include the people impacted by these changes. And I think ultimately it's going to make things a lot easier instead of doing it the wrong way the first time,
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I've seen the most successful agencies are the ones that have included that community in the decision-making process, because it did two things. One, it helped them prioritize and make the right decisions for their community. But two, it also shows that good faith effort. If the DOJ comes in and goes, hey, why did you not fix your park? Well, the community, from the disabled community, voted that we should focus on this park and these over here, and then the rec center, and then we had a process to it and documentation, and then, oh, okay, we understand you can't do everything all at once, and even though you're supposed to, you know, but at least you have that process in place. Whereas if you didn't involve anybody from the disabled community and you just started making decisions, you're just really taking it all on yourself and throwing money away and probably not even serving the community the best that it could be.
Yeah, I will say that I have learned most of my knowledge in my, 20-year span of working in the disability field from my coworkers with disabilities. And I just don't think there's any substitute for real world experience and interacting with people with disabilities and seeing how they live their daily lives. And I think that's key. We are, as part of our work with the Pacific ADA Center, we partner with two research institutions, the University of Guam and New York University, to help us do more research on the ADA and where things stand. And with New York University, they interviewed ADA coordinators to talk about barriers. And this research still isn't released yet. It's going to be coming out later when we finalize it. But one of the cool things we found was that I think about 30% of the ADA coordinators who responded to our survey had disabilities. And that makes sense because people, tend to go into fields where they're interested in. But I also think that's a really great thing because they're bringing some firsthand knowledge and experience to the table. And so I would also put a little a plug into governments to hire more people with disabilities because they bring a different perspective to the table that they may be missing out on.
Yeah, that's for sure. It just makes sense. And one of the pushbacks I've heard from the decision makers, the politicians, the higher ups, if you will, the bureaucrats, is we don't want to involve people with, I don't know that they say it like that, but are we if we involve those people or that segment of that community, are we making ourselves exposure? Are we giving ourselves exposure because we're admitting that we're that we're not compliant per se, or there's a fear that if we involve that community, that we bring more light to it, and that it's going to make more lawsuits, or they're going to get in trouble somehow. And I think that's an unfounded fear. Would you agree with that?
I agree. There are always going to be, this is the same argument with the drive-by lawsuits. There are always going to be some bad apples out there who are trying to take advantage of a situation. But by far, the people with the disabilities want their communities to be more accessible. They want to know what's not accessible so they don't show up somewhere and realize it, then they're going to be mad. So being transparent about where you are is going to make it less likely that you have an angry person who shows up somewhere and can't access the services. So I think it's better to be transparent about what you have, think through how you can accommodate and put that information out there so folks can make that decision for themselves. But reaching out to those groups shows that you're making an effort to make those changes. And I think that goes a long way with the disability community.
Yeah.
I mean, we are losing our patience. It has been, so many years, 30 plus years since the ADA passed, but again, if you're showing that effort, then that's something that we want to help with.
Yeah, and then when you do get the unsincere drive-by, just want to get money kind of person, those people will be your biggest defenders. Because you've involved the community, they're local, they're going to be your biggest defenders as an agency, is because you've involved, and it's some outsider comes in, it's just cruising through town to get a bunch of settlements or something, or cause a ruckus. I mean, so it's a win-win. And if I said this before, if you put your head in the sand, the lion's still running by, like an ostrich puts, head in the sand, the lion's still running by, you can still get eaten. So it doesn't change the fact. And I think to your point,
no, it's better to get that input and start making, those changes where you have the budget to do so, and making that progress little by little.
I agree. And it's so important, and part of that process and everything. So, well, good. Let me get one more. I know you're busy. You're running a whole Pacific ADA Regional ADA Center and all these other components to it. So I know appreciate you taking the time out. But let me end with this question with you. What do you think from your perspective and experience is one of the most misunderstood things about the ADA?
I think it's a misunderstanding to look at it as a burden for businesses or governments. I know where that comes from. I understand that some of these things do cost money. I think that the ADA is an awesome tool that we can use to come together. And I think that there's also a misunderstanding that everything with the ADA is super expensive, and I don't think that's the case at all. Accommodations for employees. Studies have found that about 50% of those accommodations are free. And I have a staff full of people with disabilities, and I would say our accommodation costs are really low. But I also think there are so many, like I said, just thinking outside of the box solutions to particularly, the programmatic side of the ADA it doesn't cost to relocate a meeting from the second floor to the first floor for
Right.
someone to have access. The cost to provide curbside service to someone who calls you in advance to say that they can't access your building, but they still want to, those costs are very minimal. But it's just preparing in advance and letting folks know that you offer those. So I think the expense side of the ADA is a bit of a misunderstood and misrepresented item.
Overplayed a little bit too much. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah. I know. Like, had a client one time that she gave her a report and everything, and got sued a year later. And I go, "Did you even put the $6 sticker in the window?" No. Well, sorry, can't help you out.
Yeah, I mean, allowing the timeline for barrier removals is a huge benefit to governments to be able to get their act together and make a concerted effort. But you do have to make that effort. You can't just sit on it, and I think that's where a lot of folks go wrong. Like you said, it's supposed to be a living document.
Yeah. Well, this is great. I truly appreciate you coming on, Jerri, and it's been an honor to have you here. I think you've shared a lot of knowledge and everything. What's the best way folks can connect with you or find out about your trainings and services?
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to reach out if you're looking specifically for information about the Americans with Disabilities Act. You can email info@adapacific.org, and that will connect you with our front end staff, and they can make sure you connect to the right person at our organization to help you with whatever issue you may have. We also have info@centerondisability.org if your questions are a little broader than the Americans with Disabilities Act, and you want to learn more about what we're doing in the systemic advocacy world. So we'd love to hear from you either way. And if you want a site assessment and you're in the Bay Area, or even if you're not in the Bay Area and you just want some trainings for your government or business, that info at Pacific ADA will connect you with our Beyond Access consulting program as well. So we'll make sure you get to the right people.
All right. Well, that's great. I will have all those links in the show notes below in the app here, whatever you're listening to on. So thanks for tuning in today. Another great interview with Jerri with the Pacific ADA Center. And thank you for coming on the show today, Jerri.
Thank you so much, Paul. This was awesome.
Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on the next show.